Okay, I wanted to do something on wild foods. Well, why are we purely wild, and why did Dad talk about wild foods so much? What's so important about wild foods? Is it better than organic? We're going to talk about that. Is wild really the highest standard that we can get to? Okay, so I'm going to be reading from Dr. Ingram's works. And surprisingly, there's a plant that grows in our yard. Most people consider it a weed and poison it, but it's actually more nutritious than anything in the grocery cart, according to Dr. Ingram. And that's based on my father's research, and there's others that have researched that as well, and we'll talk about that. Why wild always wins. It's and just as important, how does an average person living in the city on a normal budget actually get wild food? It seems like that's a really tall task. So let's talk about that. The problem isn't only what's added to the food, it's what's no longer in it. So that's what Dr. Ingram laid out in Nutrition Tests for Better Health. Modern farming has one goal: yield per acre. So how much can you pull out of the land? Not how good it is for you or your wellness or your care, but just what the yield is, really. So nutrition was never really the target. And so to push that yield for decades, we've poured billions of tons of chemicals into the soil: fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides. So the point is blunt. Really, that practice damaged the soil so badly that there are far fewer nutrients than in its original state. So the food grown on depleted soil can only absorb what's actually there. Okay, but it gets worse. So those same chemicals, they bind the few minerals left in the ground. So the plant can't even take them up. So he cited research that finding trace mineral deficiencies in the soil of virtually every state in the country. So the food is already mineral poor, and this is the line that really stuck with me. Before it's ever fumigated, waxed, refined, shipped, stored, or cooked, it's already mineral poor to begin with. By the time it reaches your plate, there's nothing left. So this is what they've done to us. But basically, that's the modern farming and chemical treatment and herbicide and pesticide industry, many names we know. And sadly, that is the case. So that's why we get to wild foods. That's where we get to the wild side. The contrast is not small. So we focus on the dandelion as an example. So wild plants, they don't grow in sprayed soil. They grow in ground and that nobody's really touched. So it's still remote, mineral rich, untamed. There's deep root, hard conditions that they have to fight off, full sun, and the plant absorbs everything. So the clearest example, the dandelion, what we've been taught to really, and I'm not saying, if you've treated your lawn already and it's full of chemicals, like eat those dandelions or anything like so. We're going to consider this example to be a wild dandelion. So in the wild foods chapter of one of his books, he wrote that wild dandelion greens can carry as much as 5 times the vitamin A of greenhouse grown greens and up to 10 times of potassium. Okay, and it's not one nutrient. So he described that he described dandelion as far richer than really any common vegetable, high in beta carotene and vitamin C, denser in riboflavin and niacin than any common vegetable, loaded with iron, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and potassium, and it even brings protein and essential fatty acids. Wow, that's really a complete food. The dandelion is a complete food. And this isn't folklore. Have people been eating dandelions? This is what I was really surprised about. Dandelion has long been relied on for cleansing and this is just a historical practice, not a health claim, but that was what they used it for traditionally. In France, it was prized as a diuretic. Generation trusted this. And it's growing out there free by the grace of our generous Almighty Creator, who without our own power or intervention, these things grow right in nature. They're ready for us to use. This is part of His provision for us. But what we get from the store is definitely much weaker. You might be saying, well, I'll just buy organic. But my father pushed further than so he did purchase organic, when that was the best option available. So I'm not discouraging that. But this is the part that I find hard to argue with. I mean, he looked at the wild grazing the animals that live their entire lives on eating wild. They simply don't suffer from the chronic degenerative conditions that have become so ordinary in people. So they can handle things. They take a hard winter and they're fine. His read is that it's the wild food on the menu they're constantly consuming. Okay. According to Dr. Ingram, this is a quote from his book, "Wild greens are even more potent in protecting the body than the commercial type." Okay, so his conclusion went past organic. He wrote, "This protection can't be reached with commercial or even organic greens. That the bioactive levels in farm-raised food are simply it's the wild potency that does work." It would be cool. And maybe this, if it doesn't, I would love to do this one. But just to have a wild wellness, because it's so inaccessible for a lot of people. Well, let's say that you could get away for 10 days and your diet could consist only of wild foods. People have really good experiences with this that I've so potentially something that could be done in the future if it does not exist. And so wild is a measurable difference. It's not a marketing word. It's a measurable difference. But that's a struggle. Let's say that this is where this raises an obvious question. How do you actually, if you're living in this and you're how do you actually get any of this? So Dr. Ingram was honest about this. He wrote that only a small percentage of Americans live somewhere where true foraging is realistic. So I'm not going to tell you to move to the mountains. The ladder, his research actually points to. So you what the realistic ladder, whatever is within your capacities. If in this category, and you're looking for something that you can access that's free, there are as long as you somewhat trust the soil, you assess for safety. There are plants, our dandelions, for example, that are just that are accessible, even in somebody's. So and that's why he really brought up that if you can identify it, if it has not sprayed or it's away from where dogs are walked, away from roadsides, in a quiet park edge or a community garden or untreated yard, that's free. Then you have the farmers markets. Okay, so most weekend markets have one grower who tries to sell of things that are in season. So you could try to find that at the farmer's market or ask your farmer's market people. Ramps and fiddleheads in the spring or wild in the fall, wild blue sea vegetables forage. You build up a relationship, ask them about their foraging practices. Not as cheap as picking it yourself, but more realistic. And the tier, and this is maybe the one for most of us, you can't truly get wild for your daily groceries. But you can climb the ladder in every step up, moving from conventional to organic, if that's the situation. We know that there are still issues at times with maybe transitioning from iceberg lettuce to bitter greens like arugula, watercress, and mustard that are closer to the wild. Farm caught salmon to wild caught, for feedlot beef to regular berries to frozen wild. And I've seen, you can even get wild raspberry powder. You could smoothies and so there maybe you can instead of the supermarket honey, you can find something that you could trust a little bit. And so those are some. I know it's difficult. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it anyway, because it's difficult to get access. We need something like this that's accessible for people that, where even for a period of, they can go on a wild diet. If they can stay especially in some remote, like in Canada, I would say in northern Canada, it's known that there's a limited, it's very remote and away from, a wellness retreat for a couple of weeks could really, on a wild diet, that could really do some good things. And that could be another option. I just don't know if that exists. It's just something that I had in mind that I would love to do or set up in the future. Okay. Then, some of the wild plants Dr. Ingram wrote about, obviously there's the wild, those are accessible. You're not going to forage that most people for themselves. So those are whole food supplements. And so make sure you find the wild harvested and not cultivated oregano for. So just to a few things to take you through those the institutions, these corrupt institutions, they've destroyed the soil. The good produce is the produce that we have is very weak, and good produce is hard. Wild for nutrition, a wild dandelion can carry 5 times the vitamin A and 10 times the potassium. Of that difference goes even beyond, and you don't need. You just need a ladder to try to win here and see what's accessible to you. And so I'm not a doctor. My father, this is what he spent his life doing, and I'm just passing on this information to you all. I'm working on researching one topic, and that's all I got for wild harvested. Check out where the guide in the description. We will have a guide on wild foods that's available as well that will recap this. That's available for free. And wishing you and your families the absolute best health and wellness. God bless you all, and take care.